So we have just passed Donald Trump's first 100 days, and there have been lots of write-ups about this, and I could have chosen one of many, but Politico had a surprisingly positive write-up. Now, you can see from the title there, he's failed to immediately end the war in Ukraine or bring down food prices or conduct mass deportations. That's a bit of a sort of maybe. But overall, when they posted this on Twitter, they were like, he's done most of what he said he was going to do, actually, and it's only been 100 days. And so I have my criticisms of what Trump has done, which we'll come to at the end, but generally, it's been pretty good. So they say, let's read a bit of this, just going in. During his comeback campaign, Trump made sweeping promises centered on America First policy, a crackdown on immigration, an overhaul of the federal government, a drop in grocery prices, global tariffs, the end of wars, and the elimination of DEI programs, among others. In many cases, Trump has kept the promises he ran on, but to do so, he has tested the balance of power, pushing up against Congress, the courts, and other guardrails. Doing so could hamper his ability to make the changes permanent or meaningfully enact them at all. So that's interesting. They have to concede, yeah, he's actually doing what you voted for. And so a lot of people who support MAGA are like, yeah, I voted for this whenever something happens and the liberal media is outraged. I'm like, yeah, but this is what I wanted. And so, yes, I get to enviously look over at America and say, I'm glad you're getting what you wanted.
I just ran the numbers. 100 days is 7% of his term.
Yeah.
So it's meaningful, but yeah.
I mean, it indicates what the rest of his term is going to be like.
Yes.
If he has a fairly...
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I know. He's had quite a productive one. So this is a very long article. I'm just going to pull out the... So you've got some that are broken. You've got some that are to be determined because they are long-term things. But I'll just read out the ones that he's kept, according to them. It's quite a lot. Blanket tariff of up to 20% on imported goods, at least 60% tariff on Chinese goods. Yes, he has done that. Whether it's a good idea or not is a different question. Ban transgender athletes from participating in women and girls sports. End the federal government's crackdown on cryptocurrency firms and investors. Pardon people convicted for their participation in the January 6th riot. Interesting how they describe it as a riot.
All of a sudden.
Yes.
And actually, if he came in and did nothing more than just pardon the Jan 6ers, I probably would have been fairly happy with that. Yeah.
But notice it's just a riot now. It's not an insurrection, according to, again, Politico.
Oh, right, yes. Rated it.
Yeah, instruct federal agencies to cease the promotion of sex or gender transition at any age, which he's done. However, 2 federal judges have blocked the order, and there's currently a legal battle going on over that.
Another 2 in jail, so...
Just as a quick aside, I saw so many people, they're locking up judges now, and I managed to ratio some guy by saying, today you learned that judges can commit crimes. Yes, judges can go to jail if they do something wrong. I mean, this is crazy.
They've spent the last 4 years trying to put Trump in jail, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they put Bannon in jail. They put, Roger Stone in jail.
Yeah.
Sorry, if your judges break laws, they go to jail too. But anyway, moving on. So, rehire service members who are discharged due to their refusal to take the COVID vaccine. Again, these are things that Trump has actually done. Eliminate DI from the military and launch a task force to remove woke generals, which is great. Again, if you're an American, this is all stuff that it's so easy for him to sort of knock down. Sorry, you go and do that. You go and do that. You go and do that. And Politico's saying, well, yeah, he's done a bunch of all this. Restore the name of Fort Bragg, which I didn't know had been renamed, but probably less important. Sign an executive order to end birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants born in the US. Now,
he did that, did he?
Yeah. Now, this is a particularly fascinating thing for people from the old world, right? Because in the old world, it's almost all blood. You get your citizenship by your parents. So even if I was born in China or something, I'd be a British citizen because my parents are British citizens, and vice versa. And so the new world's obsession with birthright citizenship is a weird thing.
It's very much an Americanization and an example of how the entire world is a province of the American empire, at least intellectually.
Yes, completely. The American ideology is essentially what won World War, the Cold War. Yes. After the collapse of Soviet ideology. And that's all we've had left to stew in, unfortunately. So anyway, they agree that he has sealed the border and stopped the invasion, and the border crossing encounters bear that out. He's declared a national emergency and used the military for mass deportations, and he has deported something like 140,000. Now, a lot of people are like, well, that's not nearly enough. But the Biden administration was claiming that they were deporting twice as many, but they were counting border turnaways. In those numbers, which doubled the numbers.
Well, if you count it like that, his numbers are through the roof then.
Exactly, because literally millions came in under Biden. So Trump has secured the border. So and even Politico concede this. He's declared a national emergency to approve new drilling, pipelines, refineries, power plants, and reactors. Because, of course, Biden shut all this down by executive order. So he has done that, and they concede. He has terminated... They've got a little quote from him here. Quote, terminate these Green New Deal atrocities on day one, which he has done. So they're not going to have the kind of power outage Spain had, I imagine. Again, just
except in California.
Well, that's their problem. He's upended the federal civil service, which is great. He's repealed Biden's artificial intelligence executive order on day one, which he did, which shifts the executive branch's focus from protecting safety and civil rights to ensuring American market dominance in AI, which in such an emergent field is probably not the time to be conservative about it.
No.
You've got to get ahead.
Well, especially since the Chinese have demonstrated with DeepSeek what they can do.
Exactly. They can't talk about Tiananmen Square in DeepSeek, so there is
Yes.
slight, but
some limitations.
Yeah, and so the majority of things they've got on the list are to be determined. So I'm just going to leave them out. So these, in this first 100 days, what he has done, he's got the 3 that he has broken. So he hasn't ended the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. To be fair, that was a bit of an overpromise anyway.
Yep.
But it's not like he's not trying to end the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a bit out of his...
The way I look at it is that it's spiritually over.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that Zelensky doesn't have, the US does not have Zelensky's back anymore.
No. And he's not retaking the territory that he's lost to Russia. It's not going to happen. Implement mass deportations of undocumented immigrants on day one. I don't know. I think he looks like he's doing that.
I mean, 140,000 would average to maybe 50K a month or something like that.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
Under 50K a month. That's a significant number, but
Yeah,
given the numbers of people that have entered, it's a problem. But it sort of confirms the point that the border needed to be closed to sort of stop these numbers rising until complete overwhelming of the native population. What I find with the media is that they're completely firm in their belief that they're absolutely neutral. And anybody who looks at them can say, guys, please, you're not. And if you say that to them, you are attacking the Fourth Estate and undermining democracy. So it's impressive that Politico was able to put together something somewhat coherent and somewhat fair. And it shows that actually what's been delivered is probably more than what they're willing to admit.
Yeah.
So,
that was the reason that I used that. I was like, wow, this it's quite comprehensive and surprisingly charitable.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. But the final one is that he said he was going to immediately bring prices down starting on day one, and of course that's actually not really in the president's control. All he can do is liberalize.
To be fair, he's brought down energy prices.
He has,
and
he was referring to grocery prices.
But one follows from the other.
Yeah. And there's a lag.
And there's a lag.
Yep.
And the other part is that if he does make a deal with the Russians and with the Iranians, a lot of the geopolitical premium on the price of oil goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up with a more stable, lower oil price. Mm-hmm. There's a discussion over whether or not this is good for American shale or not. That's a separate conversation. But it does mean that, cheap energy, key to prosperity.
And we just recorded a Brokenomics going out next Tuesday where we discuss the Iranian and Russian strategy.
Yep.
So viewers can look forward to that next week.
But no, you're absolutely correct. I mean, it's slightly unfair to say that he'd say bring prices down on day one. I mean, he's begun the process of bringing prices down. But again, it's not even in his direct control. It's 3 or 4 steps down the line. So anyway, I'm genuinely quite impressed with what Trump has done so far. And the issue is that a lot of these things are real tangible goods.
Yes.
And they are being overshadowed by Trump's bluster and the things that he has said. So I wanted to make sure that we had a fair analysis of what he did.
Yeah.
The Washington Times has got a really, really comprehensive article about Trump and how he shut the border, and Tom Homan.
I love that guy.
Oh, I love him. He's so good. He's just absolutely merciless.
You can be deported together.
Yeah, exactly. But he makes a good point. Never again does this country have to have a debate about this. It was simple because they didn't use any. They didn't need new legislation. They didn't need to change anything structurally about the system. It was just willpower. It was just enforcing the laws that were already.
It's all political will all the way down.
It's all political will. And so if ever the border is left open like that in future, this has been a concrete proof that it's the will of the administration and not anything to do with, something extraneous.
And here in Britain, it's the will of Keir Starmer to keep the boats coming in. This is not a subject of debate. It can be shut down. It can be stopped.
We still have a navy. It's self-evident. We could absolutely do this.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the tariffs. So the tariffs. This has been one thing that's got everyone spooked. And Trump, honestly, I think, went about this in the wrong way and did all of this back to front. Because he began by saying, in fact, he began by, and in my opinion, delivering Canada to the globalists with his talk of making it the 50th.
He was a little bit uncautious on his rhetoric towards Canada, I'll give you that. Yes. On the tariff thing, I would push back. For 20, 30 years now, they've been trying to use a scalpel on the trade policy.
I understand.
And it has failed consistently. So he had to bring a hammer to this discussion.
I understand, but the thing I think he should have done is spent the first month or two buttering up his allies.
To be fair, he could have done that.
He should have been promising them, that we're going to help together. America is going to work with Pierre Poilievre or Marine Le Pen or whoever to make Canada, France, Germany, wherever great again. We're going to have brilliant networks of communications and trade and technological exchanges, whatever it is. He's going to promise whatever they want, get them all on the hook and make sure they're all sign a bunch of deals. And then after they've signed all the deals, you say, right, China, guess how high your tariff's going? Because then everyone's kind of already bought into what you're doing and they have to.
Possibly. I'm a little bit cautious because administrations for, like I say, 20, 30 years have been trying an approach of some variation of that. And they've never got anywhere. They've generally given away the goodies and then find that nothing comes back. So a lot of the reason we're having a problem with China is because they were brought into the World Trade Organization, the WTO, and it was assumed that you start with your sort of bridge building efforts and then you kind of get everything else that comes with it. And a particular exacerbating factor with the Chinese relationship is they were brought in as a developing nation status, which basically allows them to do a whole bunch of things which we now think of as unfair trade practices. So they can do tariffs, but the US hadn't been able to.
And I'm not saying don't do the tariffs. What I'm saying is essentially
message it better.
Carrot first, then stick, rather than stick first, then carrot.
So even though I do admire his use of the hammer, you don't want to make everything hammers.
No, but also you need to show some love before you bring out the hammer.
Let me suggest a counterfactual just for consideration. If Trump had said nice things, the entirety of European media, the BBC, etc., would have spun it in a particular way to say he's selling us chlorinated chicken and he's trying to destroy our trade and this isn't going to work. So there's an element of the Europeans have not shown any goodwill towards their own people first and towards the Americans that would have justified a nicer approach. So perhaps there's something to think about in the next 6 months where essentially the backing of Ukraine stops completely. The Russians improve their position significantly. The Baltics are under threat. And then the Europeans have to come back running with their tails between their legs.
Absolutely. I'm not saying there can't be a 4D chess move.
Yes. I'm not sure if it is 4D chess or if it is just a sort of, this is how this train is going to go regardless. But I'm also... I accept what you're saying, and it's a fair point. I'm just not convinced that the ideologues in charge of Europe would have done it better. But you are right to say that messaging it better to European people and working on softening up the European publics would have been a smarter 4D chess move rather than hammers all the way down.
I mean, I don't think that J.D. Vance meant to make European politicians literally cry. I don't think that...
To be fair, European politicians should not be such bloody wusses.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Right? But that's you not taking them as they are and taking them as they ought to be.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that the Trump administration is kind of, they've put a bit of a step wrong in that, thinking that they're going to share American moral priors, when in fact they don't. They're a bunch of blubbing girls.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the Trump administration...
this is why I like Conan the Barbarian over Mark Rubio for...
Well, I agree, but the problem is Trump has had to step down his tariffs, right? So Trump has had to release the grip on a bunch of components that US car makers use, for example.
Yeah.
So but then this, instead of looking like strength, it looks like weakness.
Yes.
And much of diplomacy, as I'm sure you're going to...
Perception.
It's perception.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
100%.
And so power is what people perceive you to have, 90% of it.
Yeah.
And then the other 10% is what you can actually do.
I mean, it's a tricky one, because what he's got to do is he's got to send the message to... He's basically got to explain to people, you don't want to be basing your supply chain on China. So he needs to send a very clear message out for that. But at the same time, if you just bring it in one fell swoop, then you are going to disrupt supply chain. So we need to send the message, but also then have a whole bunch of exemptions and tear them down here and stuff like that. And at the same time, he's also got to respond to the Chinese who increased things on him. So he's got to play the strongman routine, and then they've got to dial it back between each other to something that's sensible.
Yes, and not getting their backs up by telling them you're going to annex their countries or making them cry in public is probably a good start to that.
Because if I see a German politician crying, I just want to bully him more.
Yeah, I like it. I'm not saying I don't enjoy it.
That when the Ukraine war started, the head of the German army posts on his own social media saying that I never expected to ever see a war in Europe again. And I thought, hold on a second. If you're the chief of staff of the freaking army, what are you doing there?
Yeah, what does he spend his days doing?
Do you think this is the Peace Corps? Do you think this is some kind of NGO? Do you not understand what your job is?
Yeah.
So there's a degree to which European leaders are so far gone that we have no idea how to reason with them other than punch them in the face.
And I agree.
And there's a separate point that I would want to introduce, perhaps for your consideration. Put yourself in the shoes of the CEO of a car company. If you know that this tariff war is happening and there is going to be this madness, and if you know that Trump has the upper hand over Europe and Japan and Korea in terms of defense, you are wiser investing in the United States because you think that over a long enough time period, the Americans will win the trade war and impose their will. And this is the biggest and richest market, so you might as well base yourself there. So the uncertainty benefits Trump, not necessarily out of 4D chess, but out of the sheer size of the gorilla that is the American economy.
Yes. The only thing that springs to mind on that is that during the Brexit negotiations, I remember, I think it was Merkel, went to the leaders of the German car manufacturers and said, look, you're just going to have to take this on the chin.
Yeah.
Because this is going to massively impact your business. And they said, okay, it's our patriotic duty. Take it on the chin, which was surprising, frankly.
Yes.
You think cynical multinational corporations. But actually, they all fell into line and did exactly as they were told and didn't give Britain an inch in these negotiations, which they could have done. They could have
and the fact that they're not screaming bloody murder about Russian energy and about green energy shows you that the entire establishment has been intellectually captured, spiritually captured by this woke dogma.
Yes.
And when you're dealing with cultists, it's difficult to understand what the reasonable approach is. As in, there's a reason why organized religion doesn't tolerate cultists and doesn't tolerate heretics, because when they go down that route, their capacity to reason gets eroded.
So just a point on that. I think that the issue was that Trump and Vance are kind of coming from a very sort of classically liberal American perspective on liberty. They could have framed things differently, or at least have Vance do it after all of this had been kind of embedded into the consciousnesses of people, rather than go over and basically tell. Because I mean, you saw lots of posts, lots of articles written by them going, "Oh, the international order's over. The sky has fallen. It's all come to an end." And it's like, well, yes, but really, the Trump administration kind of didn't want them to think that initially.
They did need to send a clear message that there has been a regime change. I mean, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I think the days of soft power have ended and the days of hard power are resuming.
Yes.
I agree.
And there needs to be such a clear message to the world, no, the order has changed. And actually, one of the few things I can say to Keir Starmer's credit is he understood that the mood music had changed immediately.
Yes.
And he got it. It's the European leaders, it's the EU leaders who are struggling with the fact that the mood music is now different.
I won't belabor the point, but the thing is, even Trump's tariffs are having an effect. So apparently, China's factory activity is slipping, according to Reuters. Again, I won't go into any great detail, but so again, with things like tariffs, it's easy to look at the stock markets and go, "Oh God, look at the panic," but it happens. It has a long-term effect. There's an effect over time, and he probably will start getting something of the result he's looking for.
Well, this is your point about the uncertainty. The uncertainty is a feature, not a bug of this policy.
Yes.
Because if there is uncertainty, it's like, okay, I need certainty. What's the most certain thing? Based in America.
Yeah.
Be on the gorilla's good side.
Exactly.
But yeah, so overall, Trump hasn't done terribly. He does seem to have tried to do what people voted for him to do. And it's an auspicious 100 days. But
I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, me too. I'm quite happy with it.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.